I24 News. Supreme Court nominee Brett Kavanaugh vows he will not withdraw even as another accuser steps forward claiming inappropriate sexual behavior. President Trump meets with the South Korean president, then announces that another summit with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un could be just around the corner. And the former basketball player left homeless by his parents as a teen who refused to give up and eventually became an NBA champion.
From the I24 News studio in Times Square in New York, this is Take 30 with Shayna Estulin.
Welcome to Take 30. I'm Tal Henrik in for Shayna Estulin. We begin in Washington, where one day after a second woman came forward to accuse Brett Kavanaugh of sexual misconduct, President Trump's nominee to the Supreme Court is fighting back. In a letter he sent to the Senate Judiciary Committee, he vowed to fight the smears, saying he will not withdraw his nomination. And in an extraordinary public relations move, he appeared on Fox News with his wife at his side to defend his name.
I've never sexually assaulted anyone, not in high school, not ever. I've always treated women with dignity and respect. Listen to the people who've known me best through my whole life, the women who've known me since high school, the 65 who overnight signed a letter from high school saying I always treated them with dignity and respect.
For more, let's bring in senior Washington correspondent Dan Raviv and senior national correspondent Michael Shore. Thank you for joining us. Dan, what do you make of this unusual move by Judge Kavanaugh and his wife? Who do you think came up with the idea? Any chance it was actually Brett Kavanaugh? He seems ready to protect his name.
No, Kavanaugh's handlers. Yeah, I hear you. There are handlers always, believe me. Ever since the president decided to nominate Brett Kavanaugh for the Supreme Court, the White House has a machine. They have handlers. They have people borrowed from conservative think tanks. They have someone from the White House press office who's handling all the statements. And it's so strange if you think about it, because Kavanaugh is a federal judge, right? He's in the judicial branch of the U.S. government. He wants to be a Supreme Court justice. The president nominates him. The whole idea is that right now, the executive branch, the president and his team, are doing everything they can so that Kavanaugh be confirmed, and then supposedly he'll be fair. Supposedly he can even rule on things that involve the Trump administration. It's strange, but it's happened before. What's never happened before is a nominee for the Supreme Court going on TV with or without his or her spouse. Wow. And absolutely deciding, of course, that it's time to clear his name. He says he'll do it on Thursday at the Senate Judiciary hearing. This is unprecedented, but it has conservatives in this town kind of excited. They say, I like this Kavanaugh guy. He knows how to fight, Tal.
Michael, he sure does. Brett Kavanaugh continues to deny both stories vehemently, but if the slightest proof to these stories comes out, let's say, and he's not telling the truth, then the lying under oath could become even a greater problem than the accusations themselves. Isn't it so?
Yeah, that's right. And there are already issues of that. Before we even knew Christine Blasey Ford's name, Tal, there were still questions about the veracity of some of his under oath testimony to the Judiciary Committee. The Democratic senators, both privately and publicly, raised concerns about. I think this really goes now to the question of whether or not these allegations are true, whether that's going to be found out on Thursday or not. Tonight I learned that one of the people considered as possibly a lawyer for the Republican side of the Judiciary Committee is former New Hampshire Senator Kelly Ayotte. And Kelly Ayotte is somebody who would actually at least put a female member on the Republican side of that Judiciary Committee, which may help some Republicans with the interrogation of Blasey Ford on Thursday. So there's a lot still to be seen from what happens there, and his truthfulness is certainly going to be something that people and senators are going to have to judge, Tal.
Dan, how is the second accusation against him about to change the course of the confirmation hearing?
Not the way that a lot of people thought. I heard from, frankly, a lot of liberals when the New Yorker story came out. There's a second accuser. Oh, my, Brett Kavanaugh is toast. He's finished. A second accuser, and then maybe there will be more. And yet on this day, I was on Capitol Hill. People who work for Republican senators say this is good. It's got the conservatives among the Republicans really energized now. They really feel they're under attack. They believe the second accuser is probably mistaken, probably has the wrong guy. They can't get into it. They can't prove it, yes or no, but they say it's helped them unite. They're really determined now to get Kavanaugh confirmed. There's even talk of the full Senate taking a vote by the end of this week, kind of rushing it through, Tal.
Dan, now to another story coming out of Washington, this one about Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein, who reportedly was thinking about resigning following last week's report that he had discussed invoking the 25th Amendment to remove President Trump from office. That set off a flurry of speculation, not only about his future, but also the future of the Russia investigation, which he oversees. But after meetings at the White House, he departed, apparently still holding his job. The White House then released this statement, quote, at the request of Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein, he and President Trump had an extended conversation to discuss the recent news stories. Because the president is at the United Nations General Assembly and has a full schedule with leaders from around the world, they will meet on Thursday when the president returns to Washington, D.C. Now back with us are Dan and Michael Schur to discuss all of this. Dan, a lot of confusion today around the status of the Deputy Attorney General. Rosenstein's fate seems to be up in the air right now. Will we get an answer on Thursday?
Up in the air at best. I don't think necessarily President Trump will fire Rosenstein this Thursday. By the way, Thursday, the same day that Judge Kavanaugh and the first accuser are testifying. Wow, what a day. But it's up to President Trump. If he decides to take the political risk and fire Rosenstein, whom he has often criticized because of the Russia collusion investigation, if Trump decides to actually take that risk, he can do it. He might fire Rosenstein. Thursday might be the big day in that case, too, Tal.
Michael, will it be a mistake for the president to fire Rosenstein before the midterms?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, and this is something that many people will say, will agree with the common belief that you don't do something like this before midterm elections. This White House, though, Tal, doesn't take that sort of political precedent to heart very often. And the fact that they might do that and the president may do that and just throw caution to the wind, that's gotten him where he is, Tal. That's gotten him to be president, that kind of going against typical politics. But yes, conventional wisdom would say don't do it. Don't do anything that would maybe make you look more suspicious and make people less likely to vote for a Republican Congress. They are down right now, Republicans in Congress. When you looked at today's poll numbers from NBC, it was 52-40 Democrats to Republicans. That's not good, and damaging them in any other way could really hurt the president in the future, even if it makes him look good on Thursday in his own eyes, Tal.
So it looks like Rosenstein will stay in his position until Thursday, but Dan, if he is fired or resigns, how can it complicate or even jeopardize the Mueller investigation?
You get questions like who would be the new Deputy Attorney General, because the Attorney General, Jeff Sessions, he recused himself last year from any Russia collusion Trump campaign investigations. So whoever is the Deputy Attorney General or filling in will then be the supervisor for Robert Mueller. And of course, what Robert Mueller does is constantly criticized by President Trump. Would Trump dare to fire Mueller or order a new Deputy Attorney General to fire Mueller? And then what would Congress do? I can't see Trump doing that before the midterms, but I could see Trump trying it maybe after November 6th. Tal?
And Michael, just briefly, what does it mean for Attorney General Jeff Sessions, another person in the Justice Department who the president has no love for, I would say?
Well, he walked away from this investigation. He could always, as Attorney General, unrecuse himself. Don't think he will. Noel Francisco is the person, the deputy next in line. Noel Francisco is a conservative, someone who worked in the Bush White House, someone who might interfere more with the requests of the independent counsel than has Rod Rosenstein, but that's all conjecture. Jeff Sessions is still sort of an odd man out at the White House and an odd man out at the Justice Department in the weirdest way because he is the Attorney General, Tom.
Dan Raviv and Michael Schur, thank you so much. Don't go anywhere. Be around for Thursday. I'm sure you're not making any plans. All right, still to come. Trump kicks off the week at the United Nations with a big announcement about a possible summit with North Korea. We'll bring you what he said. And I'll speak to the former NBA player abandoned by his mother and father as a teen who went on to win a world championship. That's all coming up here next on Take 30. Welcome back. President Trump is expected to focus much of his attention on Iran tomorrow when he speaks at the United Nations. According to the White House, he will accuse Tehran of supporting terrorism, not telling the truth about their nuclear weapons, and causing regional instability. As for today, he spent much of his time focusing on North Korea. Following a meeting with South Korean President Moon Jae-in, he announced the possibility of a second summit with himself and North Korean leader Kim Jong-un.
We'll be having a second summit with Chairman Kim in the not-too-distant future. Secretary of State will be dealing with that subject, but Mike Pompeo has been in touch with them, and we've been in touch with them, and I think within a pretty short period of time that'll be announced. It will be location to be determined, but we're both very much looking forward to having it. It will be between North Korea and the United States. It'll be similar to the format we had before, most likely a different location. A lot of progress is being made. I see tremendous enthusiasm on behalf of Chairman Kim toward making a deal, and I think that that's something that's very good.
To break it down, we're joined here on set by Jonathan Crystal, a foreign policy expert who works as a research fellow at the Adelphi University and senior fellow at the Bard College. Jonathan, we're learning today that another Trump-Kim summit might happen in the near future, and that comes after reportedly Kim Jong-un already told Moon Jae-in, the South Korean president, that he wants to denuclearize the Korean Peninsula before the end of Trump's first term in office. Do you see all these developments as a reason for optimism?
Well, I think that we should be optimistic if the standard is, will there be a war on the Korean Peninsula or not? And I think that this shows that it is extremely unlikely that there will be a new or a restart of the Korean War in Trump's term. But I do not think that there's any cause for optimism about North Korea denuclearizing. I think when Kim Jong-un says that, what he is talking about is the U.S. withdraws its own forces, withdraws its own nuclear deterrent,
declare an end to the Korean War.
Declare an end, but more than that, to actually say that we will not use our nuclear weapons to defend South Korea in the event of any attack. And I do think Kim Jong-un is right about one thing. This is his only real chance to achieve such a thing, because Trump is the only president who would have even entertained that possibility.
It's an interesting take. I would ask you that, how important is it for Kim and Trump to get more face time to get something really going, some substance?
Well, I think it's important really only in the sense that it sort of diffuses a lot of tension. Again, I don't really think that we're going to see any real moves by North Korea to turn over its nuclear weapons. Sure, they'll dismantle some sites. They've done that before. But you know, now that they have tested their weapons and there is a chance that they could strike us, that's really all they need. As long as we think they could hit us, we don't need to know. They don't need to prove with certainty that they can. So they might make some moves in that regard. But I think the meetings are important because it does reduce tension. But I don't really think they're going to reach an agreement that there is real follow-through on.
Let's talk about the United Nations General Assembly and the people that President Trump is not going to meet, at least not this week. You have President Erdogan of Turkey. You have Mahmoud Abbas, the Palestinian president, and also Rouhani, of course, of Iran. Now, I want to ask you, to what extent do you think there will be focus this year on the Israeli-Palestinian conflict? Because we know that on Iran and Syria, with Turkey's involvement, there will be for sure.
Right. Well, I think the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, there are always a lot of Security Council and General Assembly resolutions about, disproportionately so to an extreme. But in terms of in the general debate with the international focus on all of these leaders, I don't think it is really going to be too much of a focus. I think that Mahmoud Abbas will try to make it a focus. He's holding this meeting that's sort of the anti-Trump peace plan meeting that everyone is invited to except the United States and Israel. But in terms of what the international focus will be on, I think we're going to see a lot of Syria. We'll see some Yemen. We'll see North Korea. We'll see a broader things like climate change and things like that. I think that there'll be some lip service paid to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. I don't think it's going to be a primary focus.
What do you think we're going to hear from President Trump tomorrow as he speaks at the United Nations? People say that his speech is about to echo the America First message. How is it being received on the international stage?
Well, I think that it isn't so much about the content of what he says so much as the way that he says it. When he talks about that all of these leaders in the room all put their own countries first, and just as the U.S. should put, U.S. president should put the U.S. first. That's not particularly controversial. I think that everyone in the room sort of realizes that's what their job is. I don't think they necessarily need him to tell them that. What I think that was concern about last year and this year is that when the president says America first, he really just means America alone, and he means us also a sort of America first, second, third, fourth, and fifth, and you all will do what I say to do. And I think that's where it sort of rubs people the wrong way.
I'm wondering if we'll get, at the end of the day, some, breaking with consensus type of comments that we usually see when President Trump meets with international leaders on the world stage.
Yes, I think that is very possible. I think whoever is the people he has spoken to just before, there might be some kind words thrown their way, almost no matter who they are.
All right, Jonathan Crystal, thank you for joining us here tonight. And changing topics now, from world events to the world of basketball. My next guest, Derek Anderson, made his mark on the sport during a 15-year college and pro career. He was a member of the 1996 Kentucky team that won the NCAA championship, and then won an NBA championship with the Miami Heat in 2006 during a professional career where he played for 7 different teams. But behind this agreeable nature and winning smile, he held a secret. He had been abandoned by his parents when he was 11 years old and spent much of his teenage years living on the streets, taking odd jobs just to support himself. Near the end of his career, he set out to find his parents and that abandoned him years before. It's a part of a journey that he recounts in his book, Stamina. Joining me now from Louisville, Kentucky is Derek Anderson. Welcome, Derek, and thank you for joining us. Everyone remembers you as an NBA star, NBA champion with Miami, but your story begins in a very difficult place. Can you tell us about your decision to go and look for your parents and how that turned out?
Well, for me, it was basically a life-changing situation. You can either be upset and bitter about your life, or you could try to find answers and fulfill your love in your heart and finish what life is supposed to be, and which is about love. So after being abandoned at 11, I found my dad, and we had a conversation. I forgave him. I didn't know him very well, but we looked identical. He was 3 inches taller than me. He's like a tall guy. And 10 months later, he died of cancer. But I was able to actually close a chapter that most people are hurting from the inside, and I didn't want to hurt anymore. And I think that was big for me. And I found my mother and took her to rehab, been drinking and drugging for a long time. And we started a relationship, and after 28 years, we had Christmas dinner for the first time. And it was a moment that I could actually live my life as who I am as a person, more than just sports, and it really fulfilled a lot of things in my life.
Wow, you've been through a lot. Since you retired in 2008, you've been doing a lot to show other people the way to a better life. Can you tell us about the project that you're engaged at? What is the Stamina Academy?
Well, for me, it's self-education and self-love. I never drank, never smoked, never did drugs, and never stole. I just felt like if I was polite and worked hard, good things would happen, and that's what happened. I smiled, I asked people for work, for jobs, and I worked every day, and people helped me out. And that's what life is. The thing that separates people nowadays, even today, is if you're polite and you have the same background, who's going to hire you? The person that they like. And I think that's another thing that you have to realize. And for me was, I just focused on that, and that's what I teach these kids today. You don't have to have money. You don't have to have the best brand name things. You just have to be a good person, and people will help you and fulfill your own dream. So my school is based upon acts of kindness and how you treat people, and then real life skills. We don't talk about it. We have these kids act it out. So therefore, they see the decisions they're really going to have to make. You and I can't just talk about it. They have to make them for themselves. And without just talking, you have to act it out, play those roles out, give them life situations. How are you going to pay rent? How are you going to pay taxes? Those type of things the kids need to know how to do and not just talk about it. So my school is based upon real life and good attitudes, and reward them with the same things. And so it's a great facility. Hopefully we can put it in all the school systems, not just my own.
I know you also do this program focusing with working with Afro-American kids. You know, it's 2008, and is there still a need in this country to prepare Afro-American kids to handle reality in a different way?
Yeah, it is. And again, it's the attitude. I think we've been forced to fend for ourselves. We've been pushed in situations where we don't. A lot of kids are really good kids, and you can look at some of the kids that are even in jail. They had 3.0 GPAs, but because they had to find food, they went and broke the law. And they're not bad people. They just had to find a way to survive, and that's what we've been given. But we have to break that mold, and we have to find a way of helping our younger kids. And as an African-American man, I know what my job is, and it's to help those who need help. I help anyone of any race. But I know what I am, and I know who I am, and I have to focus on us, and then I can help other people. So whoever comes to me for open arms, if you're in a situation, I'm always here for you. God loves people, and that's what I aim to do. I aim to love people.
What kind of lessons are being taught there, if you can explain, and does basketball play a part?
Well, sometimes basketball is a part, but it's life skills is all about work, jobs. Wherever you go, life skills is key. How did you get the job between you and another person trying out for your job? You were more polite, you were more prepared. Those are the same things in life. For me, we just have to teach those things daily. And for me, every day that we go into it knowing that this is a life skills day, not just a life skills to just go to class, get through it, and go back to the same situation. You actually have to prepare yourself for life. So every day that we do that, we put them in situations. And again, it's like your attitude first. You walk in, you say hello. Everybody in the room smiles. You walk in with an attitude, everyone's upset at you, and you don't know why. So we go into it with the attitude, then you go into it with life skills. Did you speak to everyone? Did you speak to this person? Did you help somebody? Did you hold the door open? Did you say yes, sir, yes, ma'am? All those things matter and in job training. And then we teach them how to get a job, how to keep a job. And basketball is a good key to that. If one kid's on the ground, I have his 4 teammates run and pick him up. That's showing significant support. That's showing that you're bigger than, it's not just about you being selfish. And we do that in basketball. So basketball brings them there, then we transform them into better people, because you're going to retire from basketball, but you'll never retire from being a good person.
Sounds so inspiring. You know, many NBA players and retired players, I would say, want to give back to the community, and many care a lot about giving to the next generation, like LeBron James and the school that he opened in Ohio. What do you think will be the one common message that all of you current players, retired ones, are hoping to deliver?
What I'm hoping to deliver is we're stronger within numbers. So like LeBron, myself, and others, we should do it together. So many guys are so caught up in themselves that they're not willing to work with each other. Some people would rather see you lose by yourself than to actually win with you, and that's disturbing. So for me, it's making sure we get all of us together and everyone in the world together, and just start creating a generation of future leaders that's going to be nice to each other. You know, we're headed to social media so much that we've lost a common courtesy of just saying hello to people. So hopefully I can get all the athletes and the people in the world to work together. That's what I want people to recognize from us, that we are a unit when we come together. And for athletes, we're more than just sports. You know, we're good people, we're good human beings, but for most part of it, we have to be true to who we are as good people.
Derek, in one word, the league has changed so much since your retirement. How would you describe it in one word?
Interesting.
All right, Derek Anderson, this has been a very interesting interview. Thank you so much for sharing your inspiring story tonight and inspiring others.
Thank you so much.
And again, the book is called Stamina: